response. Just so, yeah, we've got a bunch of animals and we pretend that they're authority figures.
Yeah, that's a really big problem that, this is going to be politically incorrect, but I kind of don't care.
Yeah,
Well, I don't care at all, is what I
yeah,
should say.
yeah.
Because not everything is politically correct in this world, or should be. And back in the late 80s, I applied to become an RCMP officer.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know if you knew that or not.
No.
Yeah, I thought, I want to be a cop. So, and there was a recruiter in my town, so I went and talked to him, and then I went off to Regina. I did a bunch of square hole round peg tests,
Hmm.
endurance tests, strength tests, physicals, et cetera, and was accepted. They went, yeah, you're exactly what we want, right?
Yeah.
Young and stupid farm boy, 6'2", 190 pounds,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Exactly what they want. Anyway, and there's a whole bunch of aptitude and attitude type tests. And there was me and another guy, and we both had been accepted at the same time, and we were waiting for our opportunity to go to basic training. Um, and then we both got the same form letter that said that because of our vision, we had been rejected.
Hmm.
So, which seemed kind of sus, because the very first thing we sent in our application was a physical and our vision report.
Right.
Right. So why would you accept a guy and then get him to go to Regina and do all of this stuff and then turn around and throw it back? So we then went to see the staff sergeant that had recruited us in the first place. We asked for a meeting with him, and both myself and the other fellow went there, and we sat down and said, hey, we both got the same letter, like to the word. It said the same thing, that we had, they had redacted their offer. And he said, well, boys, he said, here's the letter that I just got as a recruiter. And he pushed this letter across his desk. And that letter said that, was addressed to him, and it said, from this point forward, you're not to recruit anyone that is not of the following visible minorities. And there was a big
Oh,
list,
this is back in the 80s.
right? This is in the late 80s, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And because the RCMP was trying to change its image from being a white boys club
Right.
to, to being diverse. And that's
Right.
fine. Diversity
Yeah.
is fine. I got no problem with it. But if you have 4,000 applicants and 3 of them aren't white boys, the odds are that they're probably not the top 3.
Right.
But the reality is they're going to take those 3 anyway in order to get their numbers up. So if you do that over and over and over and over again, eventually you're not hiring the people with the best aptitude for the job, and you're going to get people that you wish you hadn't hired. And I'm not saying that because someone has color or because they're gay or because they're missing a finger, they have a bad attitude.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that that's a very specific job. You need people that can hold their cool like nobody else, right? To be a cop, man, you have to have patience like Job,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't know if your listeners will understand that reference, the patience of Job, but if not, maybe they can go look it up.
Here,
But
I'll fill them in. I'll fill them in real quick. Job was
sure.
very faithful to God, and the devil came up to God and said, you take it easy on Job. Let me put Job through the thick of it and see if he's still faithful to you then. And then the devil did everything you could imagine, took his wife and his kids and his fortune, and Job remained faithful to God, and he was a very good example for faith to a higher power.
Yeah, there you go. And he was a very patient man, and he just waited. He waited. And so anyway, that said, in let's see, it would have been in the 90s, sometime in the late 90s, I was tree planting up in Quesnel. So I'm going to tell you another story, tie this all together. So I'm tree planting up in Quesnel. Our crew is going to go in one evening to watch a Mike Tyson pay-per-view fight.
Mm-hmm.
Bad idea. It's always a bad idea. So I was the guy that drove the crummy, and because I was on the wagon and didn't drink, I was the designated driver. So um, I drove a van load of tree planters into the pub, and so we could watch this Mike Tyson fight that, if I remember correctly, lasted 31 seconds. But the locals at this little redneck bar decided they wanted to fight with the tree planters.
Right.
Which Simon, you know me, and frankly, I was the smallest guy in the crew, so I don't know what kind of dummies want to fight with us. But anyway, whatever. But they were all amped up and drunk, and they wanted to fight. So we decided to try to leave via the back door because we didn't want to be part of this. And the plan was that we go out the back door. If there was going to be a fray in the back alley, the guys would make a little bit of space so I could get along the wall, and I'd just run for it. I'd get the van and then drive the van kind of slowly through the crowd, pick everybody up, and we get out of there.
Right.
And which is kind of what happened, except for it didn't go as planned. So when I got a chance to run, I ran, and the police were already there. The police were literally standing around waiting for the fight to start. Instead of dispersing the crowd, they were there for the entertainment.
Yeah.
And
the Mike Tyson fight only lasted 31 seconds. I mean, so everyone's waiting for a fight, right?
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I ran for it to go get the van, and as I'm running, I'm all by myself. Like, I'm nowhere near the fray that had just started. This police officer steps in front of me and pepper sprays me.
Oh, dear.
And now I'm completely disoriented. Can't see a thing. I'm drooling, and there's snot coming out of everywhere. And I thought, holy cow, someone's going to grab me and beat the crap out of me, and I won't know where it's coming from. And so I started yelling for an officer. I said, I want an officer, and identify yourself. And I kind of got my hands up to the side, thinking, holy cow, I hope I don't, one of the local yahoos grabs a hold of me. I'm just going to have to do what I can do. And anyway, this other cop came and grabbed me. He was smart. He said, hey, I'm a police officer. He said, I'm going to grab you by the shoulder. And he helped me to his car and took me down to the station, and they flushed my eyes and whatever. As he and I were headed to the station, I was pretty irritated. I said, congratulations, you idiots sprayed the only sober guy in the alley. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't spray it. He said, I'm an old guy. He said, we would have never even let this get started. He said, but these young guys we're hiring these days, this is just a big adrenaline thing for them.
Right.
They're here because they get a gun and a badge and some lights
like
and sirens.
the economics of supply and demand, and we'd think that the way crime works, the naive person thinks, the way crime works is there's too much crime, there's a demand for police officers, we hire more police officers. But it kind of, this story you're telling, it inverts it, and it's the police officers that have the demand for crime, so then they wait for the crime to happen, which is kind of, when you think about it, it's the whole false flag scenario, like the 9/11 conspiracy theories. Anytime someone says the word false flag, it's somebody in a position of power who's, that position only exists if there's X, Y, and Z crap going on in the world. So then they foment it, and then here we go, right? Or what do they call the Hegelian dialectic, where you cause the problem and then come in with the solution.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. So let's leave these topics, because I know there's other stuff you wanted to talk about, and if we continue down this rabbit hole, we won't get to your other stuff. So.
Oh yeah, wherever we go is fine, man. Where it's like I say, the journey is the destination, so we don't have to go anywhere for sure. But yeah, if you've got a roadmap in your head, we'll follow wherever you're going.
Well, no, I'm just basing it off the questions that you kind of threw at me as a guide.
Mm-hmm.
So, in relation to the last few years of craziness and COVID and whatnot, did you have a specific thing you wanted to ask, or?
Well, I'm curious about what the reasoning, because if you care to, I guess I'll preface this, do you care to disclose any information, or because I kind of got myself on the bandwagon where I don't like to disclose information, but I think based on what we've described of our philosophies, we both know that we were against the mandatory vaccinations. Let's just put it that way. So
Yeah.
to prevent having to disclose what is in or out of your body, what was the reasoning that made you against mandatory vaccinations?
Well, I'm against mandatory medical treatment of any kind
Mm,
because, you know, your body is your temple. You
yeah,
choose what you want to put in it, what you don't want to put in it, how you want to treat it. If you want to kill it, that's your business.
yeah,
You know, I've had that attitude for a real long time. Is, you know, we have the most ironic history in this country in relation to how we treat our bodies. Back in the day, and I couldn't tell you the dates, but it was illegal to try to commit suicide
hmm
in Canada. The penalty for being convicted of trying to commit suicide was death by hanging.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And that
yeah,
is really the
that's
most, yeah, that is because fundamentally the one thing you have control over is your body, and that's the government saying, no, 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 like you're not allowed to do this, but we are.
exactly. And that speaks 100% to where I'm coming from, is that it's my body. I'll do what I want to it. I'll put what I want into it. I'll keep it as clean as I want. That's my business. So that's fundamentally that. But before there was and I'll call them forced vaccinations because they were. They'll say,
Oh yeah,
oh, no, everybody was dead. You were given a choice. Yeah, you were given a choice between losing your job, losing your home, losing, you know, having your family break down, all sorts of things. You were given a choice between that and taking the shot. That's not a choice. All right. If I walk up to you and I shove a gun up your ass and tell you that you have a choice between doing this or I'm going to pull the trigger,
yeah,
you know, really?
yeah,
Well, I guess, you know, yeah, you can make that choice and call
yeah.
it a choice, but it's not
My
a
favorite
choice.
thing is the disconnect between the people who are pro mandatory vaccination, but also pro abortion,
Yeah, no,
or
I
the
know
people,
exactly.
or
Yeah,
my favorite thing is the college. So the college, I was going to college at the time. This is how I got roped into it because I was, and I I'm kicking myself because I'd been so anti-institution from my upbringing that I never wanted to go
yeah,
to college. But I finally my girlfriend and my learning and my reading, I was like, yeah, I should go to college. This would be good for me. So then I go to college, and the college is like, oh, by the way, if you want to keep coming to college, you either got to get your nose stuffed every day or get this injection, right? And I was like, wow,
right.
that's a tricky decision, you know. And
Yeah,
yeah, uh, I ended up getting the shot, but the paradox, the weird thing is the advertisements. They have these advertisements about consent, right? We're talking about sexual consent,
right. Yeah,
right? And my favorite line is if it's not enthusiastic consent, it's not consent, right?
yeah,
And this is my brain just goes poof because it's like I did not like I even like when I went in to get the jab, I went in and I asked the guy who was about to do it. I was like, if I don't want you to get this, you won't give it to me, right? And he's like, no, I can't give it to you without your consent. And then he gave me the shot anyway, right? It's like he
right.
could obviously tell by my presenting emotional profile they didn't want that shit, but he also knew that he was essentially the long arm of the law at the time, and that he was going to give me that jab, And it was not enthusiastic consent in any way, shape, or form.
Well, and there's beyond enthusiastic consent. There's informed consent. Even if
Right,
you want it, but you're
right,
not informed,
right.
they shouldn't have given it to you,
Yeah,
right? So many rules that were so apparently absolutely had to be in place were ignored and shunted to the side, right?
hmm
Um, it's just ridiculous what they did with that. So I'll tell you the history of where I got to on this one, because I was not pro or anti anything, to be honest. I mean,
right.
when the pandemic was announced as a pandemic, right? My response was having a conversation here, and my response was, well, it's about time. I guess humans are due for a good pandemic,
hmm
whatever. And I remember talking to someone here and saying, we were both agreeing. We said, well, hopefully they come up with a vaccine. I mean, that would be the best, is if they got a vaccine and were able to prove that it works. I mean, but it takes years to prove these things and to figure out what the side effects of them are.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after that,